All right, moving on to the last item of the night, and that'll be business from the city council. It'll be our city council reports, and we'll start with Councilmember Cleveland.
Yes, I had the privilege yesterday to celebrate Read Across America and the Cat in the Hat. I read to some first graders my original first book by Dr. Seuss and that was One Fish, Red Fish, something.
Still can't
Something fish,
remember.
blue fish.
Can't remember.
I can't say the name of it, but that's the first one I had read, and it was a blast. The kids really did well, and then the Horton, something about Horton and the Who. Here's a Who, something like that.
Go back.
That was the second graders, and I had a blast with that too. And they actually, I like to read like that to kids. I used to do it with my boys and do all the animated voices and stuff like that. So I haven't done that in a while. Had a wonderful time doing that celebration. Other than that, it's been quiet for me so far. So a lot of community events going on, but that's all.
Thank you very much. And moving on to Councilmember Ditball.
Let's see. I had a couple of board meetings and committee meetings. The Yuba City Transit Board meeting. We went over, had an overview of the short-range transit plan. Basically went over some various routes. Things of discussion were the schedules for students to go out to the Sutter campus, Yuba College, possibly providing transportation out that way. Some of the discussion from the public was as far as the elderly or folks that have mobility issues, to provide them possibly evening routes so that they can get out to the movies or have a nice dinner and not worry about trying to squeeze everything during the day. So it was a good discussion. Another meeting that I had gone is the Sutter Animal Shelter Authority. Still working on the TNR program. One of the issues that we did discuss was the consistency of the food that's being provided. Some of the animals are getting sick because of the various types of food and possibly the quality of food. So the mix is making the digestion difficult. So they're looking at different avenues to get some better food or maybe the same type of food. Local Agency Formation Commission. This was pretty much everybody on the commission was practically new, so we basically went over the process and what we would be involved in, what's required, and what kind of reviews that we would be doing. And then I also on Saturday attended the Officers of the Year banquet, which was a beautiful event honoring all of those officers and basically law enforcement in general for the great job that they do. Pretty much wraps it up.
Thank you very much. And we'll move on to Councilmember Gill.
Thank you. Last week was a busy week. I went to Washington, D.C. as the chairman of the Sutter Buttes Flight Agency with myself and our executive director, Mike Amini, and our legal counsel, Scott Shapiro. We left on Tuesday morning at 6:15, so which means we had to leave Yuba City by 4 in the morning. So it was a long day. Got there, visited with our lobbyist here, Julie Minot. And the purpose of this trip, and I'll tell you guys here in a minute, but we've got the 44 miles of levees that we're trying to fix, and they're moving along pretty well. And the 44 miles is basically from Thermalito all the way to Sacramento River, and that's basically the length of the Feather River. And we don't have all of the funds, nor did we have when we began to finish the entire levee project. So right now we've got a whole stretch about 10 miles roughly from Laurel Island Road all the way down to Sacramento that we need to get some additional federal funding because we've got local and state funding chipping in, and that's trying to fix some of that stuff. So the federal government's an authorized project by the feds, but they haven't contributed hardly anything to this project. And our goal going back to them was, look, we've finished most of this with our local help, with the state funds. It's about time that you guys need to come on board and help us fix the rest of this project. And working with the Department of Water Resources and all these guys, it's hard to come up with estimates. And anytime you're dealing with the government, it always takes twice as long and it's always costs twice as much. So we were able to take our own estimates back because the levee project is moving along faster and it is coming under budget from the original cost. So our budget that we took back was about $35 million is what it would cost to finish the project. And so we went back with the meetings. We started off on Wednesday morning, met at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and visited with their chief, Mark Manzanti, and talked to him. And all the offices that we went to, they all knew Sutter Beach Flood Agency. They're all well versed on the project. They know exactly what it is. It's a role project model for them throughout all the agencies, and they want to make sure that this is done on time. They want to make sure that we have the proper resources with it. And then after that, we traveled to the OMB, which does the budgeting. It doesn't matter what president it is. And that's kind of the hurdle of saying, well, it's not in the budget or it's in the budget. And we're telling them it needs to be in the budget. What do we need to get this thing to make sure it's in the budget? And a lot of times, sometimes that's when you really think about you're talking to the brick wall. And but I think we were able to make some progress with them after we got done convincing them. And it's interesting because when you go to some of these agency meetings in Washington D.C., they all tell you about it's policy, it's policy. And we asked them, we said, can we see a copy of that policy? And they had no copy of the policy. It's just kind of unwritten policy that they just kind of went go over. So I thought the nice thing was we were challenging that process, and they figured that out that we were traveling that. We went to the Pentagon as well, obviously, because this is Army Corps of Engineers. Visited with the staff there. And then in addition to that, the nice thing here was we also went to a retirement party for Roger Cockrell, who's with the appropriations, Senate appropriations, and he's been there for, God, almost 30 years. Feinstein's office, Boxer's office, works with him very closely. They look very, very highly of him. And at his retirement party, was General Bostic, and General Bostic was the gentleman that signed off on our chief's report for our levee project. So it's kind of like he knew exactly, where we were, and so which I thought was very, very nice. And in addition to that, the Undersecretary Darcy was there as well, so we got a chance to talk to her as well. So you meet all these nice people, all these wonderful meetings. Had a chance to talk to, believe it or not, Barbara Boxer. I ran into her in the hallway, and she was walking. The minute I told her we were from California, she stopped. And so, wished us the best of luck. And we did visit with their staff. We visited with Feinstein staff. We visited with Lamalfa staff. We visited with the Garamendi staff. Gave them all updates as far as what we were doing, and each one of them said, "What do you guys need from us? How can we help?" And I thought that was very, very refreshing to have that. We'll probably follow that back up in a couple of weeks. I do want to make a point out to the people out there in our wonderful cities. This was not one of those trips. That was a resort trip. We had no time to sit in hot tubs and jacuzzi tubs and drink champagnes and all that. The only reason I say that because that comment had come up on one of the supervisor trips. And we were at this one, believe it or not, it was the same time that the national counties were back. So Dan Flores and Jim Arkins did join us on our very first meeting. So I thought that was nice to have forests of the county and the city there as well. So we did invite the counties to come back on cap to cap. Got back Thursday night about 11:30, quarter till 12. Friday morning attended the Yuba City Chamber of Commerce breakfast. They had a wonderful group of attorneys. This one really sharp attorney talked about employment law, labor law out of Sacramento. So that was kind of nice to talk and see what she had to say. That was my daughter, so I let you guys know. Also had the Yuba City police officers dinner that we went to, so congratulations to Yuba City's police officer, Chris Oakley, for his recognition, as well as the rest of the attorney or the rest of the police officers that do so much for our local communities. Also attended the Sutter Buttes Flood Agency Finance Committee meeting yesterday, so a lot of meetings. So I think should be done for meetings for a little bit. So that's all I have.
Well, I think in just a few moments you'll be able to take the rest of the night off.
Oh, gee,
Cash,
thank you so much for that.
Yeah, any way I can possibly help. I too attended the Yuba City Transit meeting. Did have to depart from that rather early for other commitments, but also met with another member following that. Just kind of get caught up on some of what the route evaluations were that were going on. And the very next day, the very next week on Monday, went out along with the Yuba County Supervisor Fletcher, and rode one of the routes, and we spent about 3 hours in total time on riding Yuba Center Transit, speaking with some of the different riders, getting their input directly from the seats. And I will tell you that my impression of 3 years ago when I rode to now is entirely different. None of the buses ran empty. We probably averaged about 12 people at any given time, and we were riding mid-morning. And in talking to some of the passengers, they said that at later hours in the day, it's standing room only on many of the routes. So the service is picking up and trying to fit and tailor and customize its pickup points for the many various different groups that utilize that service throughout. I will also say that I received a free pass for the month of February to be able to go out and ride more. February is passed, so I just did it one day. But certainly it's a well utilized system. Also attended the SASA meeting. Won't add a lot to that, with the exception that Sutter County and Live Oak will be also looking at the feral cat issue and looking at their specific needed ordinances for those two different jurisdictions to follow the implementation of Yuba City's feral cat free feeding ordinance, to still use the same language that was there. Also attended the redevelopment oversight board meeting. This is a successor agency to redevelopment, and basically all we did was, it was very business oriented, just to pass along the intended report to the state that was due in just a few days from there. Anyone that ever wants to come to a very stimulating meeting should come to the oversight board meeting right here in these chambers when they're announced. But we are winding down the redevelopment agency over a period of time. And the Fifth Street Bridge, there is rumor out there that the Fifth Street Bridge was put into a stall mode, and I'm happy to note that the reconstruction project for the Fifth Street Bridge is back on track. The federal government and Caltrans are on the same page of work, along with Yuba City and our other funding partner, which is SACOG, in the replacement of that bridge in the very near future. Near future in bridges means probably in the next 5 years. But that's all good because we are moving that project forward. Also attended the Officer of the Year, and certainly kudos go out to Chris Oakley, and most notably, he is the officer he is today because he rode a motorcycle at the Yuba City Police Department. Not all those other great accolades that he received, over his military service and all the different departments he's ever served in. His true foundation was riding a cop bike around Yuba City.
Mr. Vice Mayor, were you riding a bike too, or?
Well, at one time in my career, I did.
Kind of
but
flying, you kind of trained him and took him underneath your wing?
No. I would only overtly suggest that at this point. So, but no, I appreciate everything that our officers do, and certainly probation and Beale Air Force Base, who was also acknowledged in that whole process, along with the about 500 community members that attended that dinner. It's well deserved, and I really thank the Exchange Club of Marysville for the last 37 years of honoring the police officers in that dinner. With that, this meeting will stand adjourned.